Hi everyone, once again, you're welcome to GCL Tutorial, your best platform or social studies platform where you learn social studies a very simple way and also adopt new methods of studying and then going about how to answer questions, presenting answers the right way in a social studies exam. So I've been making a lot of lessons concerning population growth and then development. I'm moving into something else, and I want us to talk about the factors that contribute to population growth. There are a lot of factors that influence growth. Now, the growth in our numbers can be influenced by three major factors. So we look at those factors now. We have what we call the birth rate, we have what we call death rate, and then we have migration. So these three factors. I'm going to add one more to make it four. In case you are presenting answers and the question demands that you should state and explain factors that influence population growth, then you can add that one to make it four. All right, so let's go into it. When you pick the first factor, which is birth rate, it is also known as fertility rate. So you first start with the definition of birth rate, where you write a point that birth rate is a factor that influences population growth. Then you go further. Your first statement, you should tell the examiner what birth rate is. So what do? You define birth rate as what? The total number of births per thousand women. You use women and not people. We see people in some of the textbooks. So women, because the women, they are the ones who carry the children and they conceive, and that matter, they are the ones taken into consideration when you want to count the amount or the number of births that have been given. Okay. When you move further after that statement, you get to the point where you tell the examiner how it influences the population growth. So you state that if the birth rate is high, the population increases. However, if the birth rate is low, the population decreases. Simple as that. Don't forget to state or add that birth rate is also known as fertility rate. Now let's go to the second factor, death rate. With death rate, when you pick that point, also try to define it. In this case, you are not going to use just women, both men and women, because both sexes die or gender are capable of dying because they are mortal beings. So you can state first that mortality rate is another term used to describe death rate. So death rate is the total number of deaths per thousand people. Then you put your full stop there, you go further, and then tell the examiner how that influences the growth or affects the growth. So you say that when the death rate is low, the population is likely to remain the same or keep increasing because they are going to be deaths as we are not recording a lot of what? Deaths. Now, when you pick that of the increase, when death rate is high, the population decreases. The population decreases. So this is how you explain that point. And also don't forget to add that death rate is also known as mortality rate from the word mortal, because mortal beings are beings or creatures that are capable of what? Dying. All right, so that is how you write. Now let's go to migration. Under migration, you know there are two forms of migration. So immigration and then what? Emigration. So immigration, the movement of people into a country. Emigration, the movement of people out of a country. So emigrants are those who are moving out. Immigrants are those who are coming in. Now take note of the spellings of these two words. The immigration has a double M. The emigration has just one M. So you first define, state your point that migration is a factor that influences population growth. Go further and then write that migration is then the movement of people from one place to another purposely or mainly for settlement. So you put your full stop there. That is very simple and clear. You go further to tell the examiner that when immigration rate is high or where there are more immigrants, the population increases because more people are coming in to add up to our numbers. When there are more emigrants, then the population decreases. So that is how you put your point. Now let's go to the other one that has to do with cultural and religious factors. So that point can also be added as one key factor. You realize that in certain cultural societies, specifically in Africa, particularly in Africa, you realize that a lot of men are given that recognition or prestige. So there is a form of dignity that is attached to the fact that you are able to give birth to a lot of children. In fact, they consider you to be very noble or a strong person, a powerful person when you have a very large family. So they see the man to be a strong man. They even equate that to riches. Because for you to have material things and you don't have children, they see that to be a waste or to be unimportant, because people will describe you as someone who has property and you die, you have a will, whether you have a will or not, no one is going to inherit those properties. So that is how people, and because of that, the men or most African men have the edge, especially those in that cultural setting, they have the edge to give birth to more children. Okay, so that can be, you can use that scenario or example or instance to explain that particular point. Now, when you go to some religions or maybe cultural societies, some people still endorse the child marriage or the betrothal marriage. So when children at a very young age are given to elderly people to marry, then it's likely that those children will give birth at a very tender age or very young age. So that stage, they are uh, very fertile, and it is likely that they will add up to our numbers or our population. So that is one thing you have to also watch. Betrothal marriage, and then also certain cultural societies also endorse polygamy. So the man is allowed to marry more than one woman. So if you the man is able to have 5 wives, now look at what is going to happen if one woman is able to give birth to 3 children. Then if the 5 wives are there with the man, it is likely that they are going to have 15, the man will have 15 children. Now, one woman will find it difficult to give birth to that 15 children, even though it is possible. But looking at what modernization and civilization and the kind of era that we live in, you hardly, and the health issues that people try to consider or take into consideration, it is very hard to find one woman giving birth to 15 children. Well, so what is happening here is that if the man had maintained just one woman, the number of children that he would have had would just be maybe 3, 4, or 5. But in this case, where he's having more women or wives, what is going to happen is that if each of them gives birth, then he's going to have more children compared to having just one woman. So that will also add up to our population or increase or determine our growth. Yes. So what we are trying to say here is that areas or cultural societies or settings where these beliefs are endorsed, then it's likely that the population will increase in those specific geographical areas. But places where they are not practiced, then you are likely to find just an optimum number or just a few number of people in that area. So these are the 4 factors that you can use to describe or determine or explain to determine what influences population growth. Now let's go into something else. Well, so when we are having a rapid experiencing rapid population growth, then these factors can be changed in a way or modified in a way with adjectives to show that this is why we are experiencing rapid population growth. So when you pick uh, reasons why our population or causes of rapid population growth, you have to look at the high birth rate. So in that case, you make it high birth rate instead of just birth rate. So trying to say that because a lot of women are fertile, they are giving birth to more children, and then we are recording more births or new births, then it means that our population will just keep increasing. So that is one factor. Now, when you take another issue of the absence of family planning programs or services in remote area or rural areas where we have people who are not abreast with the issues with birth control measures, it is likely that they will just keep giving birth without knowing the implications of it. So in those areas, family planning services are absent, birth control measures, so the people are not adhering to such measures. Yes, so that is also a factor. Now, you can also talk about where there are improved facilities. When there are improved facilities like health facilities, it is likely that a lot of lives will be saved. Okay, so we are not wishing that people will die, but that is going to keep a lot of lives in the system. Okay, so that can be a contributing factor. If you put that aside, you can talk about the fact that we are also having people who do not appreciate that they need to read more or plan for their families. Now, that takes us to an angle where we have a lot of people who are unable to read and write in the system. So when you pick these people, you interview them, you realize that they are not actually interested in anything that has to do with. They are not actually concerned. You see, they are not concerned about the effects of rapid population growth, and then they just back what they do with their beliefs, and then some people also with scriptures, as the Bible says, we should be fruitful, replenish the earth, and people do that when they know that they have to. Some even know that there are implications. Some also don't know. So we can talk about ignorance as one of the factors. So there are a lot of causes of rapid population growth. When you go through your textbooks, you come across them. There are effects, of course, and that is where our attention needs to go. When you take the effects, you realize that if you pick issues concerning social problems, you realize that most of the social problems occur because of rapid population growth. Look at the high crime rate. Look at poverty. Look at pressure on social amenities, pipe-borne water, and then taking electricity, for instance, looking at accommodation, and so on and so forth. Yes, so these are some of the effects too as well. So it can also affect the health of the mother. If you want to look at the individual, yes. Then teenage pregnancy is a cause of rapid population growth. But when you look at what is happening there, it's likely that we are going to have a lot of incidents of school dropouts. Okay, so that can also be an effect. There are so many measures. You can turn the problems into measures. So what we said that there is an absence of what birth control measure or family planning services. Then there should be more public education, regular ones, that will inform people and let them know the implications of rapid population growth. And they have to understand that if you have the means to take care of the children, then yes, you can go ahead and give birth to the number that you wish to give birth to. But if the means isn't there, then you have to plan your family and know, because education and all these things come. So we won't be recording high rates of illiteracy in the system and school dropouts and other vices also. All right. So that is the whole thing about rapid population growth. Now, one incident is rural urban drift, rural urban migration. We've realized that that is the commonest form, and the movement that takes place where people move from the villages or the rural areas to the urban centers is becoming more and more. Unlike what you see at this, in the villages, having people moving from the cities to the villages, that is not so common unless during festive seasons, and then maybe people going to meet up with their families, and then but they don't stay there. They just live there temporarily and then come back to the city. So we always see people moving from the rural areas to the urban centers. So rural urban drift is one of the forms of internal migration. So the forms of internal migration, you have rural urban drift, you have urban rural drift. That's it, from the city to the village or the underdeveloped towns. Then you can also talk about rural drift, moving from one village to settle in another village, so, or underdeveloped town. So those are some of the things you have to look at, the internal migration. When you pick the rural urban drift, which is very common, you realize that there are so many factors, and the factors can be categorized as pull factors and push factors. The pull factors are the factors that are the things that are in the urban centers, the place they want to go, that are attracting the people, the good things over there, the advanced form of education, the presence of social amenities, the schools, and so on and so forth. When you look at the large markets, it draws a lot of people from the rural areas to move to the urban centers. So these things become the pull factors, of course. And then the jobs, employment. So people want to always come to the city and look for something to do. They are seeking greener pastures. So that is a pull factor. Then the push factors are the unfavorable conditions that are in the rural areas. Let me say the villages or the underdeveloped towns that are making the people move from the rural area. So the conditions are so unfavorable that they are pushing them from where they are living. So those are the push factors. So the absence of jobs. And then we know we are talking about decent jobs, jobs that can pay well. Then looking at the fact that people are going through a lot of hardship, inadequate social amenities, and then all these infrastructure facilities, educational facilities, and the things that they can. There are a lot of some of these places where the children or pupils had to complete the primary school and then move to another town or developed town and complete their Form 1, Form 2, Form 3. That's their 3-year basic education before they can finish. And even after that, they had to choose a school in a city before they can get access to their second cycle education. And that becomes too much. So what are the solutions? Probably, of course, we've seen the effects on the villages where they leave their family members lonely, where they abandon some of their family members and then come here. Some are mothers and they leave their children there and they come to the cities. Yes. So all these things are effects. Looking at the cities, what happens there is that they put a lot of pressure on social amenities because already we pick a city like Accra, we have the capital city here in Greater Accra. But when you pick the region itself, in terms of land size, very small, but most populated. So a lot of people are moving in. They want to come to Accra, look for jobs, and get access to advanced education and enjoy all kinds of social amenities. And when that happens, there's more pressure on our health facilities, pipe-borne water, and so on and so forth, electricity. Yes, so that is the kind of thing we see. Then we start seeing a lot of people who don't have decent accommodation. We start seeing a lot of children getting on the street, becoming streetists, and then we have all these girls falling, becoming victims of teenage pregnancy, and then the guys too as well abusing drugs. So social vices and then now become a very common menace, yes, that or challenging one that we have to deal with in the cities. So these are the effects. So go back to your books, revise them. They are very simple terms, and make sure you also listen to news and know what is going on in the cities and then also in the rural areas. So this is what I just want to share with you, just to wrap up everything that we've been doing about population and population growth and then development. So I believe this lesson has given you some kind of information that you can add to what you already know, and you prepare yourself for your final exams or any other test or discussion or debate or whatever where you find yourself. Thank you for watching JCL tutorials. I'll come your way with more interesting lessons. And for now, I'd like to say bye bye. Take care out there. Thanks for watching.